Welcome everyone. I hope that you're all safe and well. Thank you for your hard work last week. This will pay off in the end. This week we'll move on from animal cells and we'll introduce two new cells. These cells are plant cells and fungal cells. We have two learning intentions this week focusing on these two new cells. We will name and describe the function of the 8 parts of a plant cell, and in studying fungal cells, we will name and describe the function of the 7 parts of a fungal cell. If you think back to first year, you'll remember plant cells being introduced to you. This week we'll add to that knowledge. The diagram in the slide is taken from your first year biology book. In order to recap this, I would like you to take some time to label the plant cell above, and when you're ready, move forward for the answers. If you managed to complete this, well done. To quickly recap S1 cell biology, you'll remember that the key structures present in the plant cell include the cell membrane, cytoplasm, and the nucleus, just like an animal cell. The plant cell also contains 3 new organelles, the vacuole, chloroplast, and the cell wall, but more on this later. The plant cell, as you will have to know, consists of 8 key structures. Please remember that these structures can also be referred to as organelles. Plant cells share the same key structures as animal cells: the nucleus, the cell membrane, the cytoplasm, and then these 2 new structures that we introduced last week, the ribosomes and the mitochondria. They're all present in the plant cell. But plant cells have got 3 extra structures as well, and these will be familiar to you: the cell wall, the chloroplast, and the vacuole. But again, we'll add to this as we move through this PowerPoint. So we can see here the 8 key structures of a plant cell. Thinking back to last week, we can spot the nucleus, represented by a black dot. You can see the cell membrane around the edge of the cell, and you can identify the cytoplasm by the space around the organelles. The mitochondria and the ribosomes are also in here. They share the same structures. Look around though, you can see these extra structures. On the furthest edge of the cell, just outside the cell membrane, you can see the cell wall. This big gap that we can see in the centre of the cell, it isn't just an empty space, it's a vacuole. And finally, there's these chloroplasts. Chloroplasts look a lot like mitochondria in a diagram, so be careful. So we've already said that really the plant and animal cells are similar. They share a nucleus, the cell membrane, the cytoplasm, the ribosomes and the mitochondria. They're all in common. I'm going to give you some time on your paper or on your computer, and I would like you to describe the functions of each of these structures. Remember that this is a recap from last week. If you managed to get these answers correct, well done. Looking back in last week, you'll remember the functions of the structures of the animal cells, and these simply translate to a plant cell too. The nucleus controls all cell activity. The cell membrane controls the entry and the exit of substances, so this decides the materials that can come in and out of the cell. The cytoplasm is where all chemical reactions occur in the cell. Then there's these 2 new structures, the ribosomes and the mitochondria. Remember, the ribosomes are responsible for protein synthesis, and the mitochondria are the site of aerobic respiration. But in order to fully understand the plant cell, we must know the functions of these extra organelles found in a plant cell. We said these were the chloroplast, cell wall, the vacuole. So the chloroplast is a green organelle found in the plant cell. This is where photosynthesis occurs. The cell wall is a strong structure around the outside of the cell membrane. That supports the cell. The vacuole is always represented by a large space in the cell. This organelle is actually full, however, of cell sap. Cell sap is simply a liquid found in the plant, and that contains substances that it might need to survive, like sugars, salts, amino acids. On this slide, you'll see a different diagram of the plant cell. It's really important that we can recognise plant cells, we can recognise animal cells. Using the knowledge that we've covered so far, I would like you to try and label the cell, as well as provide the functions for each part of the cell. Good luck. You'll see the answers on this slide here. If you manage to answer these all correctly, then well done. This diagram really highlights that not every cell you see will look the same, So it's important that we fully understand the structures present in these cells. So the question we need to ask ourselves is this: are plant cells all the same? The answer to this is no. There are actually two different plant cells that you need to know. So far, we've been looking at what is called a palisade mesophyll cell. This is a plant cell that you will see most often. These cells are located in the leaf and contain chloroplast for photosynthesis. The presence of this chloroplast is what makes the plant green. You can see here that this palisade mesophyll cell is the exact same cell that we've been studying so far. It contains all of these organisms that we've mentioned, but most importantly, it includes chloroplast. The second plant cell that you must be able to recognise is known as a root hair cell. We can find its location in the name, the root hair cell. These cells are found at the roots of the plants, and so they're found underground. These cells are recognisable by both their shape, but more importantly, by a lack of chloroplast, and this is what makes them different from a palisade mesophyll cell. Now if we think about this, these cells are found underground. If they're underground, they have no access to sunlight. Now photosynthesis requires sunlight. But where have we heard photosynthesis before? That's right, the chloroplasts are responsible for this process of photosynthesis. If there's no light available, remember they're found underground, then there is no need for chloroplasts as there is not a chance of photosynthesis. The next cell we're going to look at this week is called a fungal cell. These are sometimes referred to as yeast cells. So if you hear yeast cell, you think fungal cell. If you hear fungal cell, it's just a yeast cell. Fungal cells are very, very easy to understand as long as we know our plant cell. They're identical to a plant cell, but with one exception. They do not contain chloroplast. So if we look at this diagram of a fungal cell, you can see that where the plant cell contains 8 organelles, the fungal cell only contains 7. It still has a nucleus, a cell membrane, cytoplasm, it still has ribosomes and mitochondria, and it still has that vacuole containing cell sap and that support providing cell wall. But notice what's missing. There are no chloroplasts present. Also, take note of the difference in shape. Where plant cells are usually rectangular, both plant and fungal cells have a cell wall. There are some differences in these, however. They differ in the materials that they're made from. The plant cell wall is made from a material called cellulose, while the fungal cell wall is made up of different materials. It's really, really important that you keep note of this. So let's recap. We've looked this week at both fungal cells and plant cells. We should now be able to identify that there are 8 parts to a plant cell and 7 parts to a fungal cell. In addition to this, we should also be able to state the function of the plant and fungal cell organelles, as well as highlighting the differences between these cells. Now that we've went through the PowerPoint, these are the revision tools that we're advising you use this week. The revision notes can be found in the Files section of Teams. If you look at pages 2, 3 and 4, this gives you all the information that you need this week about plant cells and fungal cells. And you can also look at the BBC Bite-Size website for additional help. I've attached this link to the PowerPoint as well as in your assignment on Teams. Finally, if you type in Study Stack and in the search bar type St Ninian's HS, this will come up with loads of flashcards. Click on the file CB, Plant and Fungal to get flashcards for this topic we've just covered. This week we have 2 assessment materials for you to complete. The first are revision questions for you to download and complete. These are very similar to last week, except this week we're focusing on plant cells and fungal cells. If you cannot get this done on Word, simply write your answers on a sheet of paper and email them to Mr. Blackwood. The second is a quiz that will be set on Teams. This again will focus on plant cells and fungal cells, and once you've completed it, you must submit it. This will show us that you've completed the task. The quiz won't go up until Thursday of this week. You will then have until the end of the day on Friday to complete this. Please let me know if you have any trouble accessing documents in Teams or if you need any extra help with this. I hope that you guys are safe, I hope that you're well, I hope that you have a productive week, and thank you for listening. In diagrams, these fungal cells are usually round.